But how do you support an unreliable character through camera?
That script was extremely complicated. And the book, like if you read the book, you would go,
Yeah.
I don't understand how they're going to make a movie out of this.
Yeah.
And the script itself was very challenging and complicated. And you just had to trust that when you shot a scene and then when you revisited that scene so you could do flashbacks later, to keep things in perspective and not get caught, and always ask ourselves, are we tipping our hat anywhere, and is this going to give anything away? And in a sense, you make two movies, so that you make the scene work perfectly and flawlessly, and then you go back and find how you're going to reveal it later so as not to trip up on it.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. It was really challenging, all the subliminal brads popping up here and there for a certain amount of frames, the flashbacks, the voices, the Helena Bonham Carter's character, addressing him instead of who he thought he was addressing, and all the different things that come back to play. And then we played with a lot of, there was a lot of new technology that hadn't really been done yet. Some of the photometry and the macro photography going through and moving through the CG world of cups and wires and all the different things. And then there was a company called Bouffe in France that had the kind of frozen moments. And so to make a love scene, but cover it like it's a helicopter flying around these bodies, it was really novel and fascinating. And the gunshot, having 4 cameras at high speed and going between them, because you could replace the frames where they're missing and then duplicate and come around. You can do these high speed camera move as he's going back and forth, and then repeat that with a prosthetic, and then repeat that with any CG that needed to be done. And so there were so many kind of complicated elements that took a long time to come together, that you had to really suspend reality and believe and trust that all these things will fit and what you're doing is the right thing, because it was so complicated. And unlike today, where you can almost type in an effect and watch it at least in a rudimentary way, that wasn't the case then. That took a lot more trust and suppressing all the kind of normal approaches to things, and then staying open-minded about it.
Did you guys at any point feel like, did that fear translate until the release? Oh, is it going to work or is it not going to work? Or were you absolutely sure of the product before it hit the market?
It was so irreverent, that movie, that you knew you were doing something special while you were doing it. You just didn't know how it would be received. David said to me during that interview that I want Fight Club to be our generation's Blade Runner. And by that, I mean, I want it to define the 90s like Blade Runner did the 80s. And he said, it'll probably be the best script I get to direct, and probably the best movie, and probably won't make any money. Now, that's easy said then, but after you spend almost 2 years of your life, him, going through it, and me a year of my life, of course you want it to be successful and well received and appreciated for what it is. And unfortunately, a lot of times the box office and amount of money it makes is the ultimate judge about whether or not it was successful. Yeah. Fight Club came out. There were a lot of marketing challenges, and Columbine had happened. So everybody was really sensitive to a movie about fighting and anarchy. And so the idea was to market it without having much of the fighting, since fighting really is just a metaphor for many things going on in society at the time. Yeah. And we shot all these commercials with the actors that David and I created that were really kind of humorous and irreverent and poked fun at society. And my parents wouldn't have seen it had I not shot it, because they thought it was a boxing movie, And so it came out and didn't do very well in its initial release, but then when it came out on DVD, it went right to the #1 DVD, and then soon after it became the top grossing, and then it got put in the National Museum and all the rest of the stuff. Yeah, it worked out. And now, David doesn't let go of marketing. That's part of his deal, because somebody in a department can misunderstand the intent or how you're supposed to even just tease or push buttons to get people to respond to something, and they kind of blew it on that.
Yeah. But so while you were shooting all these images, Did you guys anticipate that these images are going to be iconic forever?
Yeah, the way we set them up, they were pretty cool at the time. You know, everybody would be appreciative of what it was we were accomplishing, and the images looked good. You never know what the ultimate result is going to be, but it felt really good, and it felt funny, and it felt provocative. For me, things like, there's a scene when Helena Bonham Carter is going, and I think she's observing a help group with testicular cancer, which obviously she's a woman that doesn't really need to be there. And she's got a black hat on, and she's smoking a cigarette. Like, for me, it's one of the prettiest close-ups I've done. She looked so badass and cool. And it reminded me a little bit of Rachel being interrogated by Harrison Ford on Blade Runner. It's not quite as dramatic as that because they had the hard light coming through, but same cigarette smoke, same kind of beautiful woman. And so it was fun. That really stood out. And then all the things and the laughs and the guys doing the crazy antics, just like the panning and watching the IKEA imagery pop up. There was a previs for that, so we saw what that was going to be, and it just hit home so much. It was so culturally right at the time that we knew that we were making a great statement, but again, you don't know how it's going to be received.